Thank you very much. Well, we have a very exciting event going on here this week, and I have to remember that I'm here this morning to talk about my favorite subject, which may not be yours, which is economics. And coming onto the stage after that nice intro, I'm reminded when the word economics first came into the vernacular of my family. I was a New York City math and science student, and I ended up going after college back to the University of Pennsylvania to Wharton. And back in Brooklyn, my mother was asked by her nephew, Aunt Miriam, why is Paul back in Philadelphia? I thought he just graduated. Did he do something bad? And my mother, having learned a new word, said, no, my son Paul's going to be an economist. And my cousin said, Aunt Miriam, what's an economist? And that threw my mother, because it was a new word, and she said, I think an economist is someone who is very, very, very good with numbers, but does not have enough personality to become an accountant. So as we're going to spend a little time here talking about economics, let's hope my mother's definition does not come true. And let's hope talking about economics this morning helps you start to see your business and your role in our society and in your business life. The reason I became an economist was growing up in Brooklyn. It was so clear to my immigrant father and his brothers who were in business with him that no one knew anything about economics. Yet economics dominated 95% of their waking lives. Every day it was how to get a job, how to get a better job, how to buy a car, how to finance a car, and of course the ultimate dream for an immigrant in Brooklyn, how do you move to Long Island or Westchester to buy a house? And how do you finance a house? And I noticed whenever they would talk about economics, they would argue and nobody agreed. So I said, they really don't know. I'm going to go figure out, once I found out there was this subject called economics, I didn't know that in high school, I switched and I became an economist because I was brought up feeling so fortunate that my family was living in the United States, and I wanted to bring home to them the knowledge that they clearly knew the most. And I've had an amazing career as an economist at a very young age, ending up in the White House, ending up as assistant to the CEO of Citibank for 5 years, got introduced to everybody, and had an amazing career until I was 41 years old in 1995, when I had an epiphany that said, I wished I had stayed in science and math, because the world doesn't need economics, the world needs something else. That epiphany occurred when I was giving a speech at what was then the RCA Dome, 60,000 people in Indianapolis. And as I'm the keynote speaker, and I usually like to do, I put on a baseball hat, and for a few hours before I walk around, not that anyone would recognize the keynote economist anyway. And I asked, as I did the last 20 hours here, going up to individuals like you, saying, why are you here? What do you hope to get out of it? Do you know who the speaker is tomorrow? What do you think he's going to talk about? And I'm trying to, honestly feel what you're trying to learn here. As I walked around this crowd in Indianapolis, it was absolutely shocking to me, because these people were so overweight and so unhealthy. And when you talk with them, you can figure out by their dress or some conversation, they're probably about 35, but they look 55. And this was just not my reality. I had a beautiful place in Soho next to NYU where I taught. I had a beautiful beach house in the Palisades, and when I would fly back and forth, not land in the middle between my two upscale communities, it was as if I'm living on a different planet. So I came home and I said, why would people spend time and money to go to a weekend retreat, pay money to learn about economics, when it's clearly the most important things they learn to do first? They didn't learn how to eat and take care of their health before they learn about economics. And where does this disconnect occur? And then I started studying obesity in economics, and I've since written 4 books on preventative medicine. I coined the word wellness almost 20 years ago in one of those books, The Wellness Revolution. Wellness, when I started, meant cancer care. It meant hospice care for cancer patients. It was a wellness center. And I grabbed the word wellness and took it back, as I'm going to explain to you today. And as I started studying this, it got very depressing. And I said, I don't know enough biology to know what this is about, and this is a terrible, terrible crisis. What I figured out, and I'll use today's numbers, back then, it was 50% of the population was overweight and obese. But it wasn't just a random 50%, they all lived in certain areas, they fit a certain socio-demographic profile. In one of my early books, I talked about the poorer you are, the more overweight you are. And the New York Times said, how ridiculous is this rating that they like to say whatever president you're with if they don't like you. How ridiculous is this Reagan economist who now says that poor people are more overweight than rich people, and everyone knows poor people have no money to buy food. I mean, that was the thought 20 years ago. And of course, as I started studying it, I started realizing it's so much worse than it looks out there. Then it was 50% overweight and obese. Today, it's 65%. And it really, in our new millennium, here we are in the 21st century. Just think what the world was like when we were born. I mean, I shudder to think of the life my parents grew up in Eastern Europe, where most of their family died in concentration camps, or my wife lived in a refugee camp and came to America, you know, as a young child as a refugee from Vietnam. And I look at the world and I go, look at the lack of discrimination. We have an African-American president. I mean, these are amazing times we live in. And yet we've replaced the racial and gender discrimination of all of history with a new type of discrimination based on your weight. A person walks in for a job, walks in to take a date, walks in for a marriage, walks in for anything they want to do, and their weight and health, particularly the weight, define their social and economic opportunities. This is painful stuff. The same way your family name, birth, color of your skin, or race did only 50 years ago since the beginning of time. And as I explained earlier, in the past where poverty was associated with thinness, today poverty is associated almost worldwide with an overweight who operate on the lower rungs of economic ladder. When I was young, I used to laugh. They used to say, what do you want to be, Paul? And I go, I want to be a rich fat man. And it was like that image of the capitalist is going to make money and do all these things. A rich fat man today is an oxymoron. And poor and fat have become synonyms. So these were the numbers in 1980. They've doubled since today. And what we really stand before us is there are 314 million residents, Americans, living in the United States. And of the 314 million, think of that number, 204 million are overweight or obese and not enjoying the fruits of their economy that their parents and grandparents and they probably worked so hard to enjoy. My life's been defined by the Cold War. My father's from Russia. I spent several years in the Soviet Union working for President Reagan, and I'm leaving the stage tonight to go work with the Chinese government in China. And yet when I look at the world today, I see the Iron Curtain that Churchill talked about in terms of their lives. What would it have been like living in an Eastern European bloc country, as I'm sure many of you have? I mean, you couldn't decide where you want to live, you couldn't dream of getting a better job, you couldn't go date somebody out of your class or network, you couldn't dream of getting married to the person you might be in love with. It was a pretty bad life. And yet, I look around today at the people who are overweight, particularly obese in this country, and they live the same life as if an Iron Curtain had descended on 65% of our population. So I got into this and I said, gee, this is terrible. I'm now into emotionally what it's like to be obese. I'm a writer, researcher, I go talk to people and I'm collecting all my data points. And I wish I knew biology. I wish I knew how their body got to be like this. How do I learn about this? And then I found out, wow, it's pretty cool I'm an economist, because it's economics that caused the obesity and overweight in the first place. It's the rules of economics of the food industry and the medical industry that have brought us to this precipice, it really is, where we spend $3 trillion a year, 3 times what we spend on all public and private education in this country, on sickness care, which is really entirely obesity care. Economics is to blame for our diet because 1.5 trillion of our economy. So let's just talk about economy. You have about 15, I deliberately don't use slides because I want you to remember the numbers. We have about a $15 trillion economy. That's 15,000 billion. That's output, new growth each year. It's a really amazing number. And 1.5 trillion, 10% of it, is the food industry. And I worked in the food industry. As an economist who wrote papers on statistical analysis, I got called in by General Foods, Procter & Gamble, and General Mills at different points in my career and hired as a professor to help them analyze economic data. Mea culpa. I am one of the people guilty in this because when I watch them thinking what they're doing, my job was to run the numbers, but it was sort of like being in a place I said they shouldn't be doing these things. Because these packaged food companies follow the great unwritten law of marketing. When you are under the gun to sell a product, it's much easier to sell more of your product to an existing customer than go find a new customer. In any business, it's much easier to sell more to an existing customer, it doesn't sound logical, they already got it, than to go find a new customer. So what does that mean? It means that most packaged foods companies operate with what we call a potato chip marketing equation. A potato chip marketing equation says that 10% of the customers who buy potato chips of your brand consume 90% of your product. Amazing number. But think of it. You might buy one bag of potato chips, nice big bag, last you a month, and you take a little bit out each day, put a few chips next to a sandwich or some kind of garnish. Or you might buy one bag a day and eat it in front of them. You see how fast it is? That's 31. So you very quickly see that everybody has these high consumption customers. And these high consumption customers are like rats in a laboratory. They study, oh, they go to this church and the new song praising Jesus is this one. Let's hire the singer of the song for our commercial, so they subliminally hear the commercial and associate our music with what they are, our item at the church. And they put together, studying their likes, dislikes, hopes, dreams, heroes, aspirations of a high consumption customer. And everyone's a little different, but they've got some product they're effectively emotionally addicted to. No expense is spared. If you're a high consumption customer of McDonald's, through General Foods, through Procter & Gamble, any type of Pringles, any item, you are like a deer in headlights. You've got the best and brightest minds getting up every day, studying everything in your life to make you consume more of that food. And they mix the chemicals in a way that's unbelievable. I've seen glass rooms where they take cookies like Oreo, which, by the way, used to be Kraft Foods, became Philip Morris Tobacco. They literally took the tobacco marketing people and same company and moved them over to the food companies. And they make these Oreos, these cookies, so when the child eats 30, 35, 45 cookies, 55, and it says, Mommy, I don't want any more of this cookie, they go fix that to the chemist. Don't you ever give me a cookie that a child tells me he doesn't like the taste. You want some proof of this? Suppose you never tasted a banana. So I come over here, I should have brought a banana on stage, and I throw you a banana. And you go, what do I do with it? You bite it, it's terrible. I go, no, you gotta peel it. So you peel the banana. Never seen one before. Think about it for a moment what it tastes like. It's amazing. Wow. How would you describe the flavor of a banana? So you eat the banana, and then I go, here's another. Sure, and you eat the second banana. Now we actually think this in your body. What happens on the third banana? You want a third banana?
No.
Isn't that funny? You've never had anything so absolutely amazing in your life. So I take out an orange, and I throw you an orange, and you bite it. It's bitter. No, you gotta peel it. So I show you how to peel an orange. Pretty amazing. And then you eat the orange. Wow, I give you a second orange. You want a third or second? Same thing with an apple. Isn't this amazing? You never had it before, and after 2 or 3, what's going on? God gave you a body that says, you've had enough potassium in the banana, go for the vitamin C in the orange. It self-regulates itself. So our bodies are built to always want to get a variety, we know, of vitamins and minerals. And of course, what happens now? You go to McDonald's and have a French fry. Which French fry are you sick of? Is it the third? Is it the 50th? And what? So why? Why? It's because they processed and made the French fry to fool your taste buds. It actually tastes better and better the more and more and more until you're sick of it. And they effectively fill this with empty calories. Empty calories will use up the 2,000 whatever calories you can consume each day that don't have the vitamins, the minerals, the proteins that you need to live. And I remember once when I was doing some analysis and I went up to General Foods, and everybody used to mention these companies, but I'm getting old now, I'm not allowed to talk about anyone, and they're all clients, so companies don't even exist. And I said to the head guy in the main meal division, I'm having trouble with the data, can I see some of the videos? Because there's video behind these focus groups, behind one-way mirrors. He goes, you don't want to see those, Paul. And I said, no, I want to see what they said about the product, because I'm having trouble misunderstanding this category. And he said, Paul, if you saw these women walk in here at 220 pounds, and I make my bonus going to Barbados if I get them to 240 pounds this quarter. And he laughed about it, but they literally knew, don't demoralize the executives of the company by show them what their customer looks like as they talk about their most valued customer or targeted customer.
Wow.
So I got pretty down on the food industry. This is when I started out my research in how we got here, because I could see where the obesity was coming from. So I said, surely the cost of this is just unbelievable. The cost of just one disease already, type 2 diabetes, are more than we spend on public education. And type 2 diabetes just destroys families. It makes 55-year-old men and women go blind, have amputations, and have a very, very reduced quality of life. And I'm being kind, that's just one side effect of being overweight. So what does the medical industry do? So when I turned my research to the medical industry who has to deal with this problem, I found that the medical industry executives make the food industry executives look like Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
The medical industry focuses on what they call a doctor, and they call a doctor a technology dispenser. So you may think of it as your doctor, they think of it as a technology dispenser. They make technologies and he dispenses them. The technology dispensers or doctors are targeted by the medical companies, the detail companies, the drug companies, the medical procedure companies, in the same way that the high consumption food customer is targeted. And the medical company people, well, here's some examples. When I grew up, you got sick and you took a penicillin for 6 days. And the first thing you asked when you got a prescription is, how long do I take it? Today, medical prescriptions in the United States, 95% of the prescriptions filled in the United States are for prescriptions you take for the rest of your life. The doctor says, take this. When? Forever. You're never getting better. I don't cure anything. I treat the symptom of your, oh, you want to get better? We can't talk about that. That would mean changing your diet or getting rid of obesity. We treat the symptoms of obesity that keep you alive. And the reason for that is just so obvious. If you were a union railroad worker all your life, and you had worked for them, and they trusted you, and they said, we don't trust these guys at the investment banks. We trust you to watch our pension money and invest it so we can have good retirement. Nothing wrong with that. And you had to invest the money. Where would you invest it? You'd invest it in companies. Would you invest it in companies that make pills that cure disease they sell for $100 once? Or you invest in companies that make a pill that treats a symptom of the common cold, doesn't cure it, you take it every day for $3 for the rest of your life. And you can see very quickly how the entire medical establishment is built economically. Nothing wrong, nothing bad, it's just facts. To make products that do not cure anything but treat symptoms. So the $3 trillion of our economy, that's the medical industry, is basically driven by obesity, heart disease. These are the big factors that consume roughly 90–95% of our medical budget, are directly the symptoms of obesity. And yet obesity is not on the chart to even check as a disease. You have to treat one of the symptoms of hypertension or something else and get them on a drug that they take the rest of their life. And the medical establishment effectively is paid for by governments who have to get through this budgetary cycle or by companies. And why should a company spend money treating something that's absolutely 99% going to cause cancer 8 years from now? Because you're going to have this guy on Medicare or on another company, or you'll fire him long before he develops really bad symptoms, such that you don't have to pay for this. I'm not saying this pejoratively like any of these companies are evil, but the effect is the same. And here's the worst example. Suppose for a minute I drew a line down here. I say lock the doors, and on this side of the room, everyone is the CEO of a food company. On this side of the room, everyone is the CEO of a medical supply company, medical procedures, hospitals, pharmaceuticals. And I said, now guys, I want to show you how we're all in this together. First, food companies. Do you recognize food companies that you think you all compete and you hate each other? Wrong. You at Wendy's and you at McDonald's, you don't hate each other. When you get a guy obese, which is 20% over normal body weight, and that average keeps going up, he consumes 50% more calories. So do you see how McDonald's, you're in it, partners with Wendy's and partners with Procter & Gamble, we're all in this together. Let's get the guy drinking more soda. Even if it's not your brand, they'll come around because once they get 20% overweight, they consume at least 50 to 100% more food per day. So that's why at Hamburger, you at McDonald's, you do not make jokes about obese people. These are your best customers. They take up the same amount of space, same time, and consume twice at the cash register. That's a very valued customer. So food companies, first realize you're all in this together and stop competing so viciously. Our goal is to make America obese so we can double consumption because the population is not doubling anymore. Now, you guys, these guys, you better make friends with the medical. These guys, the medical doctors, when people come in, your goal is to sell more of your medical procedures and get them coming back for more visits and get them addicted to your prescription drugs. Now, you take an oath, medical companies. I promise under the new Hippocratic oath, I will never, ever tell a customer to stop eating. I will never, and ruin our business. I will never, ever tell them to lose weight. I will never tell them to exercise. Now, it sounds crazy. I mean, but in effect, this is what's really going on. because the doctor's limited to a 10-minute visit, he's got to deal with the prescription, and he doesn't have the time. It's all economic loss. The food industry needs to keep making people obese, and their only enemy is if the medical community ever figured it out, that the real reason everyone has all these diseases is the diet and the lack of exercise. Now, it might be kind of ridiculous here to talk about this conspiracy, and I ask all the food and medical industry executives to raise your hands and say never work to get the patients to lose weight by changing their diet or improving their exercise. Now, could this happen? Of course not. Does it happen? Absolutely. It happens in a conspiracy way greater than as if I could swear them all in the Bible to do this vicious thing I just said. They're all parents themselves. They all have parents themselves who are dying of type 2 diabetes and so many diseases from obesity. But at the same time, the laws of economics, as John Maynard Keynes, the great mentor of economics, said, every practical person who believes themselves to be a free thinker is really the slave of some defunct economist. And the laws of economics I knew were so powerful. So I started doing my research in a way of saying, how much time do we have left? If we're now going to run out of everything, we're going to run out of obesity's going from 50% to 65%. Forget 15%, that's 45 million more people obese. And I started looking at these numbers and I said, how much time left till the whole economy collapses? And that's when I started looking around and I said, wow, it's not that bad. There is a solution. You're a huge part of the solution, and it's economics. Because I knew the laws of economics are so much more powerful than the laws of any government or religion. And the laws of economics dictated this problem. Only the laws of economics could cure it. And I remember how I first stumbled into it. 15 years ago, I was 45 years old, and I had joined a mountain bike group in my home in Park City, Utah. And my friends would come over who were about 60. These guys were 60 to 65 years old, all retired CEOs. They'd come to my house, and I'd have breakfast. My wife would make breakfast, and then they would go bike up the mountain. Then after about 2 hours, my wife would drive me from where we lived at 7,500 feet to where they had biked to at 9,500 feet. I'd get out of the car with a bike and bike the last 500 feet vertical, a couple miles with them. Because I couldn't possibly bike 3 hours straight uphill, that kind of mountain, the whole ski mountain. And as I'm getting out of the mountain one day, they're waiting for me. It was a little late. I get out of the car, and I'm biking up, and they said to me, oh, you're really getting good about this now. You're able to keep up with us in this last couple miles. And I said, don't make fun of me. I'm 45 years old, you're 65 years old, and you're biking from the very bottom all the way up. I'm just biking the last 500 feet. And my friend Mel said to me, Paul, I'm 65 years old. You think I could bike like that when I was 45? He meant it. Like, not a joke. Like, when you get older, you concentrate on your body. And you know, again, the thing I was more up with, when you get older, you get less healthy. When you get older, you get more overweight. And I started noticing around me the Mels of the world. And I started noticing around me, and my wife said, well, you know, Paul, I know you're obsessed, my wife said, with obesity and studying all this, but don't you look how many of our, where are they? You know, she wasn't coming with me to Indianapolis. She's home with the kids, and she's thinking of the life we live in Pacific Palisades, the life we live in Soho. Everybody's fit. And as they're getting older, they're getting thinner and more fit. And that's when I saw the solution. I saw that there was a subgroup in the population who were getting older and more fit, again, as they age. Like, poor people are overweight because they have money to buy food, and these conundrums started to scream. And as I started focusing on it, I said, wow, there's a new thing going on here. The averages, the totals show 65% overweight and obese. But if you look at the 35% who aren't overweight and obese, there's a subgroup within them that's growing and growing. And that's when I said it's not just growing in a way that their numbers or total numbers say they're happening. It's growing in a way they're getting more fit and more healthy, but we're not counting them. I'm just counting them as non-obese. What I should be counting is they're fit and more healthy. And that's when I saw the emergence of an industry that I later coined the word to be the wellness industry. And the wellness industry was a list of items from the nutritional business, from, I would call it cataract surgery, because your eyes get older and it's a normal symptom of aging, but the largest operation in the world are cataracts, to fitness clubs and trainers. And my wife said, Paul, you're an academic, you're a college professor, and you have a personal trainer. I mean, you have to think what this would have sounded like 30 years ago. Why would a college professor, not a movie star, have a personal trainer? And of course to you that's so standard, but from the world I had come from, it didn't make any sense. So I first had to define the industry. And I defined the industry first as I said, the existing healthcare industry has nothing to do with health. I call it the sickness industry. And the sickness industry are products and services provided reactively to people with existing disease, ranging from a common cold to a cancerous tumor. Sickness industry products treat the symptoms of the disease or hope to eliminate the disease. The wellness industry are products and services provided proactively to healthy people. Proactively, that's you're finding someone healthy. I'm not sick, I'm fine. Let me talk to you about your health. I'm not sick. Let me talk to you about your health. To make them feel healthier, to look better, to slow the effects of aging, or to prevent diseases from developing in the first place. In shorthand, the wellness industry are products and services you consume to keep from becoming a customer of the sickness industry. And the sickness industry, once I defined it, I found out that already by year 2000 was up to $200 billion US. Very substantial growing industry. And I could see that the wellness industry was up to $200 billion compared to the sickness industry of $1.5 trillion. And today I'm happy to report to you that the wellness industry worldwide, what you do, is now a $700 billion industry. It's no longer a product. It's not better food or a better way of working out. It's a whole new way of thinking of things, similar to the way when Henry Ford invented the horseless carriage, everyone thought it was a new kind of carriage. Some people said, no, it isn't. It's an automobile. It's going to change the world. And people go, it can't change the world. It doesn't need hay. How can you drive a car with no gas stations? It needs roads. It doesn't ride on an unpaved area. Waiting to get roads. And they start going, it needs gasoline. I mean, it goes go through the list. And of course, what happened is the auto industry completely changed the way we live. Very similar to the personal computer. When the personal computer came out in 1980, how could a computer be personal? It was the ultimate oxymoron. Computers were these mindless things that you worked in a big room with, and then somebody came out with a personal computer, and why do you need it? And someone says, it's not a personal computer, it's a better calculator for spreadsheets. And you bought a personal computer just for spreadsheets. And then there was another brand new personal computer you bought with Microsoft Word that was just for word processing. It was a better typewriter or electronic typewriter or display writer. And some people said, no, this thing isn't even about processing your words, it's about creating words, communication, and saw that it was going to be a whole new industry. $1 trillion industry would change the way we live. And we're at the nascent stage right now of the wellness industry not being a better product, but radically changing the way we live. Now, I have a lot of things I want to throw out to you. So my real goal here today is to give you information that will stimulate your thinking you can apply to your business throughout your conference here this week. And more important, go home and start the research more and start seeing how to apply it. So I'm going to run quickly through the number of concepts of why the wellness industry, as I define it today, is at a $700 billion level of an economy that's 15,000 billion, 15 trillion, we're at 0.7 trillion. The sickness industry today is at 3 trillion. Wellness industry is 0.7 trillion. Wellness is growing 4 times faster than the sickness industry. And soon we're going to be spending our money to prevent someone. You're in a hybrid model because God bless you, you're so out there treating obesity and it brings you to people. On the other end, you're also keeping them from becoming obese again. See how they become a wellness customer. Because once they get your product, and you'll soon have both. You'll have customers coming to you because you changed their life and saved their life. And on the other side, you'll have people saying, I'm getting older and I want to feel better, I want to be stronger before I get obese or before I get sick. I want to adopt a new product line. So the 4 reasons for the 1 trillion trajectory, which we'll probably hit the next 2 years of wellness. The first is really the baby bulge in the US, and part of this is worldwide. Baby boom, you've heard a lot about. In 1946, people started returning from World War II. We can guess all the reasons, but as an economist, I don't tell you the reasons, I tell you what the numbers are. And the numbers are that we had a baby bulge. We went from a population of 50 million people born in the 18 years prior to 1946 to 78 million in the next 18 years. And we call that group the baby boom. I'm right in the middle of it if you were born from 1946 to 1964. And that bulge in the population defined a lot of consumption. But it's more than just the numbers of the baby boom, because the baby boom at 1946 to 1964, the baby boom population which are now ages 47, 48 to 66 years old, the prime ages that they're focused on your product. It's not just that they're 1.5 times the population of the group before and after. Because remember, population is always growing, but in 1964, we went from 50 million to 78 million born for 18 years, then we went back to 50 million, huge drop. And that drop occurred for lots of reasons, from women in the workforce to the hell, we can go through the reasons, but let's just stay with the facts. The bulge in the population is today around 48 years old to 66 years old, and that's your prime customer. But it's more than just the numbers of who they are. Because the baby boom generation is the first generation that doesn't accept aging. Whereas they used to say, I wear my hair this way because I'm older. I would never wear that dress because I'm now a mother. I'm on and on. We see that people's whole attitudes have changed. In effect, the baby boom will buy anything that brings them back to their youth. They buy a T-Bird today that looks like the T-Bird of 1950s. They call it retro. I first discovered it when I was 17 years old and I was driving up from Philadelphia back home to New York. And as I entered the New York airspace for FM radio, I'm listening to my music from high school. And I'm enjoying the music. And then I'm going, oh, that's an old song, 3 years old. And they came out with a new word called oldies, which are songs my older brother listened to. And it was just absolutely bizarre that, what are the young people listening to? But because of the bulge in the population, and as people got older, this baby boom, they wanted the songs that reminded them of their youth. In architecture, in clothes, in 3-button suits, we see it everywhere. The baby boom will buy anything that reminds them of their youth. What do you guys sell? Something that reminds them of their youth, or something that gives them their youth? They really don't know on a mass level. That's why we have 65% obesity and overweight. They really don't know you exist. And if they think they know someone told them you exist, they don't believe it. On a mass level, if they believed it, they would be running to any product that would cause them, product, service, training program, that would cause them to actually give them back their youth. Because they're not just accepting, like every generation, that they're getting older. And that's what's primarily driving the wellness industry. These little nascent dots that are occurring. And I say dots, I mean, God bless you, you're approaching $1 billion in sales in the next year or two. And yet you're just shifting from being a company and an opportunity to make money to a piece of, God bless you, public policy, to a piece of our society, to part of our government. Because you reach a level that you can affect not tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, but millions of people. From your end, their business and customers, God bless you, as you go out to do what you need to do to support your families. But the beautiful side from my end, sitting on a government and public policy level, is how you're approaching the level now of having something that can massively improve the quality of life, not the quality of the dollars, for starting in America for 204 million people in the United States and 314 million. And that's why it's worth my time being here and studying you, especially as you cross into something large enough in the billions in sales, which translates to millions and millions of customers, and what you can do to change their lives. The second reason for wellness growing to $1 trillion, and why wellness is going to surpass the sickness industry, is consumer has an unlimited propensity to consume wellness products and services. That means the consumer doesn't know you exist and doesn't believe you exist. But once they have an experience, because you have changed your appearance, it's like you walk in a room, one person lost weight, everyone goes running to the room. I love some of Carl's examples on this, how some movie stars are in the room, but everyone runs to the person in the group who has just lost weight. And once a consumer develops this wellness mentality, like, wow, someone close to me lost weight, got healthier, looks better, feels better, got rid of type 2 diabetes, not taking insulin. Once that happens, the consumer wants more and more and more. And let me give you an example. It's something I call quantity demand and quality demand. And this is not as relevant to your product today, but very relevant over the next few years, or for those of you who already have a mature basis of customers. A quantity demand is the demand for something you just purchased. And let me give you an example. You never had Thai food before. I take you out Thai food once, you go, wow, you never had it before, what do you want next week? Thai food. But the best example I use in my life was when I was just graduating college, and I started working at Citibank, and my father took me out to buy my first suit. So I went and bought a suit for $200. They put the suit on me, and it felt real important, and I went and go to work on Monday morning with my suit. And I feel great. Then I notice on Tuesday, when I put on my suit and go to work, everybody else has got a different suit on than me. Now all of a sudden, I want more quantity I never needed a suit before I started working at Citibank, right? Now I want 2 suits, 3 suits, and then I want more quantity of the product I didn't even know existed or I wanted before. That's what happens with any new consumer product. You sell them the product, they get to like it, they want more and more and more of it. But does it ever stop? No, it doesn't stop because it's something that American companies generally don't know called quality demand. Once I got my $200 suit on, I now have 10 suits. 2 years later, I go by the clothing store, and the man says, "Come on in, Paul, I got this new suit for you. Go away from me. I have 10 suits. I don't need any of your suits. No, just try this new $400 suit on." So I put on the $400 suit just to be nice. I feel great. I buy it. I go to work with my $400 suit on Monday. How do I feel on Tuesday morning putting on the $200 suit? Now, who knows this cold? Japan. Japan flooded the world's markets in the 60s and 70s with cheap 6-transistor radios. They made cars like Datsun for the Toyota, cheap cars, lots of them. You bought one and you bought a second one. You didn't have one car. A couple got married, now so they need 2 cars because they don't want to argue over it. Then what happens? They figured out that you don't want a third Datsun, so they switched to Lexus, to Infinity. They literally dropped the whole moniker, the whole brand. In the US kept making Chevy. His father bought a Chevy, his grandfather bought a Chevy, and of course Americans started buying different cars. And you see what happens, a couple buys a car, they buy a Chevy, they then get some money, they want a second Chevy so they don't fight over the car, now they want a third car, it's a BMW. And you start to see the shift to quality, it's never stopped, no. This is the big mistake most companies make. They come up with a product and they try to get started with a cheaper product. You're up against some of this in your competition. You go and explain wellness, you're almost getting there, someone believes because they know someone else. How much is that? Oh, no, I'm not ready yet. Then they buy a cheaper product. Eventually they will come back to you. What people don't realize is your best prospect for sales is always the person who said no. Particularly if they said no for a cheaper product. Because that cheaper product, they buy Thai food. The first time they had it, it's $8. They go back to the restaurant, it's $8. They go back again, it's $8. Now, I want to take you to a $50 Thai restaurant. You wouldn't have thought of it before, but now you're in the belief that you like Thai food, you'll buy the higher quality. So what we see is the shift between quantity demand, more of what you already just tried, and quality demand, a higher quality, which starts the whole process all over again. That's how products grow, and that's the biggest mistake entrepreneurs make. They develop a product and they stick with the quality. In the shift between quantity and quality, if you're building something for the long term, not I'm in this for 2 years and I'm going to retire or I'm getting out of the business, you've always got to stay on the highest quality. Let's be honest, the highest quality means the highest price. It's a euphemism for what we're really saying. It's going to cost more. But you want to be at highest quality because if the product has efficacy, as we know wellness products now do, you've got to be at the highest quality because even the ones who turn you down will come back to you, provided you stay around to let them know they're there, and it'll also keep your customer from going somewhere else. But the quality is the key story. And that's really what's happening in wellness, is that the wellness industry is growing so fast because of this shift to higher quality products in wellness, which holds the whole industry because they're more efficacious. The third reason wellness is growing is that there really is no limit. I mean, ultimately, what causes wellness? What causes wellness is that every blood cell in my body is 30 days old. And the bone marrow is the oldest cells, which are 90 days. And as I age, they get weaker and they reproduce less and my body's aging. So no matter how fit and well you are, once you figure out that you can do something in terms of lifestyle, exercise, and particularly the right type of food, diet, minerals, vitamins, once you find out that you can actually change the throttle of your aging, it's absolutely no limit. And who wants to slow down their aging more and be more healthy? Those who are already healthy and fit. So you start to see the long-term aspects of your business. You approach a customer, God bless you, because they're sick. They're in the sickness industry. They have a terrible disease called obesity. You change their life and bring them into fitness, but they don't want to stop there because the aging is still going to be there, that at some point they're going to be wanting to spend more and more and more and more higher quality. And that's why I love seeing these nice startup companies in wellness, but they almost don't stand a chance because if you don't have the money to invest what your company does in R&D, to develop the new products, the new procedures, the new methods, and constantly go to conferences and learn about them, you don't stand a chance because you do stand a chance in our economy. You bring people into wellness and change their lives, but then you lose them as your customer because they're going to want a higher quality product. And that's why it's so important to realize that wellness has no limit because we are always aging and always have a need for for more wellness product. And the fourth reason that wellness growing is so much, and that's why I love dealing with the Chinese. The Premier of China had read one of my books and held it up, talking about the economics of obesity, and so this Chinese economic miracle doesn't stand a chance if we allow the obesity that's starting in our cities to continue. And what I like so much about dealing with the Chinese is not only is the leadership fit and healthy, but they see health as something that's critically important to their economy, not just to having happier people. And they also realize that if they had our medical expenses, they would all die of starvation. There'd be no food, no economy whatsoever. So I'm hoping that only by the Chinese, they are killing us and beating us, but not in espionage and not in nuclear arms, but in something that's a really beautiful value, life. Being happy, being healthy. And they're focused very much on it. And I'm hoping very much the US is getting there, and we are getting there very quickly now, because we finally see at the very top levels of NIH and of the people who worry about the medical expenses of our country, a recognition that it's much cheaper to treat a disease before you get it. If you look at polio, if you look at typhus, if you look at all the diseases of 100 years ago, what did we do? We found ways to keep them. Did we ever cure malaria? No. We found a way to clean up the water from the mosquitoes that caused the malaria. And if you look back, we had the answers 100 years ago. Let's keep people from getting sick in the first place instead of spending a fortune once they're sick. And we're just now coming back to that. So I'm very optimistic because government policymakers really have no choice. I'm seeing a very attentive audience, by the way. And I'm going to spend some time now because I'm even seeing a little lift in head when I shift a little from economics to microeconomics and things that may help you specifically in your business, not just the big picture. So I'm going to take a few minutes now and run through why I particularly like network marketing so much. This is really the business methodology of what you do to, God bless you, bring health and wellness to people and change the paradigm of their lives. And of course, you know, you're a very hybrid company. You do this as network marketers, and you do this on normal distribution of television commercials and shipping the products. So it's a fascinating model. You're clearly focused on the end-use consumer. But of the things you do, frankly, I took my time to be here because of network marketing. I love network marketing. And the reason is so many reasons, and I want to run through network marketing and where it fits in the economy. Before doing that, I want to talk a little bit about who succeeds in network marketing and who succeeds in business. And one of my favorite areas of economics are millionaires. So when I was a little kid, I just became fascinated by millionaires. My favorite TV show was on in 1957 called The Millionaire. Anyone ever remember that show?
Yeah.
No, got a few hands. And it was a show shot from the back, over the shoulder of the millionaire. So you never saw the millionaire. They always would promise, like Charlie and Charlie's Angels, you could see him. The camera was him looking at the world, and he would give $1 million away in each show and watch what happened. And so each show we tuned in, I said, I'm going to see a millionaire, Dad. They never showed you the millionaire. Then I had a favorite comic strip, Little Orphan Annie. And in there was Daddy Warbucks, the millionaire. I shaved my head in an early age. It didn't work. I was a millionaire. And then I loved restaurants. And my father would always say to me, I said, Dad, let's go out to eat. What do you mean go out to eat? We went out to eat last week. You know how much that costs? What do you think we are, millionaires? I said, millionaires went to restaurants. Every time we went out to eat, Dad, where's the millionaire? No millionaire. And then, of course, the millionaire went from being a mythical character by the time I got to Citibank to an unbelievable number. In 1990, there were 3.6 million US millionaires. 1995, there were 7.2. 2000, there's 2,000 were 7.2 millionaires. Today, there's 10 million millionaire families. That's 25 million people, 2.5 per household, living in a house that the net worth of that family, minus the credit card debt and all their assets, is over $1 million. That's phenomenal. And yet millionaires are still today the fastest growing minority in the United States. We are increasing millionaires now at a solid 1.5 million people per year, right through this so-called recession. What we're seeing is the most amazing economic conundrum. This is what I spend, frankly, most of my time today is working on unemployment. We live in a world today that the reason Occupy Wall Street was such an interesting phenomenon, watch these people protest Wall Street, is everyone in protesting in the park has a brother or sister that works on Wall Street. Well, we finally studied the millionaires, and I studied the Forbes 400 list intensely, because that's a list I didn't create, that Forbes magazine in their wisdom says these are the richest people. So I look for patterns and I put them up with my students on charts and figure things out. And what we see is that the people at the top of the Forbes 400 list with enormous concentrations of wealth, more than most governments, 50, 60, $80 billion in a single lifetime. Fascinating. When we look at them, almost all of them have a bunch of things in common. Almost 9 out of 10 didn't finish or go to college. These are the richest people in the world. And I mean, young people are 40, 50, 60 years old, like Steve Jobs' age. The majority of them come from middle-class backgrounds. So they had a single lifetime accumulated wealth. Whereas when the Forbes 400 was started, there were 12 Rockefellers alone and 16 Morgans on the list, because old families had money with wealth. They seem to be disappearing. And most important, most of the people on the Forbes 400 list, which are self-made billionaires, have something in common with our last 6 United States presidents. A degree from Yale, or equivalent, and a brother in jail. From Roger Clinton, Billy Carter, Neil Bush, Donald Nixon. I worked with some of these people. My job at different times was keep this underneath, away from the press, whatever they were doing lately. And what we see is that the same parents raised some of them. So the question I've always asked myself as a teacher of college freshmen, for 21 years I taught a gifted class of freshmen, and I'm fascinated by these people and where they come from. And it used to be if I had a girl at NYU, her brother was at Columbia. Today, her brother literally might be in jail or doing something, I call it bad things, like our last few presidents. And what I see is the old age question age-old question is it nature or is it nurture? Is it your genes that make you successful, or is it your environment? Prior to 1900, we thought it was all genes. Firstborn male has special genes, we gave him title to everything. Guess what? He stayed rich, proved the theory. 20th century was about environment. It's all your environment, it's not your genes, it's poor kid isn't a bad person who should be electrocuted for killing 8 people, it's his environment, we should have sympathy for him. Or he's not really successful and done well and he got all those advantages, environment. Today, I'm finally there to say it's not nature and it's not nurture. It's neither. And what is neither? You guys. It's motivation. In calculus, we talk about success, f of x is a function of 10% is your genes. I'm not here to tell you that your genes and your intelligence don't matter. 10% of the function of success is your environment. 80% is the choices you make and the motivation. And I can prove that with any successful person by looking at their siblings. And what we see is that in a world where there's so much opportunity, and we live in a world where, look at our president, where he comes from, that anybody can grow up to anything. The decisions you make, your motivation. And for some people, it's they survived a car crash, they had some major epiphany. It could be just waking up and going, all right, I'm fed up. I'm going to do something about my life. Starting with my weight and health, starting with my business, starting with bringing the weight and health I've discovered that works for me to other people. But I am going to make a choice. I'm not going to let things happen to me. I'm going to proactively make that choice. And that is so clearly, when you study successful people, the dominant factor. So it's not nature and nurture, it's neither. It's making a choice to do something with your life. And then whatever your genes are, whatever your environment, really don't matter. And you know that whenever you turn the person left or right and say, tell me your story, how you got from here to here. Or, sadly, went from here to here in life. It's the choices you make that determine almost everything today. And it's a very exciting time to be an economist and be a person who is studying this, because people can do so many changes and you really see it empirically. Now, the other items that make network marketing so exciting. Now here I'm talking not to your whole company, but just to the network division of your company that I respect so much, is first, when I got out of school, and I was doing real well, youngest graduate, top of my class at Wharton, I got hired by Citibank. And people said, Paul's got this loud Brooklyn personality, why is he going to bank? It's the First National Citibank. I didn't join Citibank because I wanted to wear those suits and work with bankers. I joined them because they had the biggest computer in the world. It's called IBM 37, and I was a programmer. And I could program us to do really cool tests and marketing and stuff. And in effect, the unit of technology and economic power in 1976 was a large organization with a big mainframe computer. Because you could use that mainframe to control data, customer data, and blow away any local bank or local competitor in anything. So people joined big companies because the technology. Now, of course, what's changed? What's changed is the unit of technology has shifted from the large computer to the individual PC and the handheld PDA. So today, the biggest companies in the world today, the Vodafones, IBM, Apple, what do they make? They don't make a single product that can make a child smile when he's unhappy, feed you when you're hungry, clothe you when you're cold. What do they make? They make tools that make individuals so much more productive. And the focus of their tools is you. You're more important as an individual than the guy working at Citibank. In fact, you see that individual entrepreneurs, by and large, have much better computers and technology because they buy the latest one than the big company that still has an accounting system that says we haven't advertised this over 3 years. Even though I pay you so much, use the old computer. We've all been there. And so what we see is the unit of technology has shifted to the individual, which is so much stronger. The most fascinating thing I find, though, when people say, maybe you should join my business. You know, you should come into what I do here at Beachbody and you should join it. And you have it debate and they go, well, here are the benefits. I work for this big company and I work for the auto company and I work for the bank and they give me this and this, and you weigh it against going into business for yourself. And you're kidding them because you're playing along with them because you have to in the debate between being an entrepreneur and going to work for a large company. The real key is you have no choice. There are no jobs left with large companies because they're hiring people like me all the way down every day to eliminate those jobs. And underlying all this is a man who's 103 years old, who won the Nobel Prize for Economics in 1991, one of my mentors. Let me tell you a little bit about Ron Coase. In 1931, Ron Coase was 20 years old, and he had already graduated from London School of Economics, upper-class English person. And in 1931, he won an award from London School of Economics to study something new called entrepreneurship, Horatio Algerism. And he came to, as a coin word, and he came to the United States saying, this is the land of Horatio Alger, of more important, Henry Ford, of Alfred Sloan, of General Electric, Thomas Edison. I'm coming to America where anyone, unlike England, can be anything. I want to know what makes these entrepreneurs work. And when Ron Coase gets here, he was very upset. He says, here I am in America, there's this new depression that just started with the crash on Wall Street, and everyone I meet wants to work for Thomas Edison. They want to work for Henry Ford. They want to work for Alfred Sloan, General Motors. Why? Why don't they want to be him? Don't they realize he's just like them? They can be Andrew Carnegie, they want to work for Andrew Carnegie. And as he studies this, he writes a paper, he's 20 years old, called The Nature of the Firm. The paper wins the Nobel Prize for Economics 61 years later. And the paper, The Nature of the Firm, says this. It says, the ultimate efficiency is everybody working for themselves instead of some big organization, the nature of the firm. But the problem is transaction costs of finding the employee and telling him what to do exceed the work output. In other words, you want a letter type, to use an example. You could walk out on Wall Street and say, hello, who can type the letter, $5. But by the time you find the person who got to type, brought her in, sat her at the computer, tell her the way you like to format the letter. You see the problem. There'd be no way to communicate. It would be 10 times the work of the letter. Instead, hey, why don't you just sit here all day, even though I only need you an hour a day, work here 8 hours because you're all trained, and every time I have a letter, you'll get it out. And based on his paper, The Nature of the Firm, Henry Ford built the River Rouge plant, which was 12 miles long. In came coal, out came finished cars. Why under one roof, a 12-mile plant? Because they could see when the steel didn't fit on the bumper. You could jog up the mile and tell the plant to fix it. There was no communication technology. There was no way to tell a plant to make the parts smaller. You see why they all have to be in one room? That's why big companies exist. Well, I've been spending my work as an economist, particularly working with governments around the world lately, on Ron Coase's work. I wrote a lot of the original papers on Ron Coase. And I study Ron Coase's work. Why the firm exists, the nature of the firm, guess what you come to the conclusion? It shouldn't exist at all. Every large company is permanently dismantling itself into smaller and more efficient entrepreneurs doing their specific piece. So it's amazing to me in this debate when you go to recruit someone and people say to you, well, I don't know if I should go into business myself, and they smile and tell them it's okay. But if you look around at their father's job, their grandfather's job, not only the jobs went away, the companies went away. Only this used to happen over 30 years. Today it happens over 3 months. The essence of the conundrum I'll explain economically, what I call my major issue I spent time on, would be, let's take a look at 1930. In 1930, there were 100 million Americans. You should visualize that, 100 million in this great land. And there were 30 million farmers. And the 30 million farmers worked very hard through the Depression and couldn't feed. We had starving people, 100 million people. 50 years later, same people still alive, not 20, they're 70. 50 years later, in 1980, the 30 million farmers were down to 3 million. But those 3 million farmers, 10 times reduction, were producing enough food for 1 billion people. They were feeding 250 million Americans and exporting 7 to 50 million. Think about it. 30 million couldn't feed 100. Same people and their kids, 3 million, 10 times reduction, fed 10 times more, 1 billion. It's amazing numbers. So what happened to the 27 million farmers, if you're asking the question of the 30 million? Well, some of them retired, couldn't make a living farming. Some got rich, sold out to shopping center developers, built suburbs. But more important, their kids got into technological businesses like making carburetors for cars. Wow. Making fuel injectors, making vinyl records. You could bring music into the house with a vinyl record, which was really cool technology in the 1930s. And of course, what happened? The vinyl record business disappeared in 1 year when digital CDs came out. And do you think anyone who worked in a vinyl record plant knew anything about making an audio CD or a CD-ROM? Or how about guys who made carburetors, mechanical carburetors? All of a sudden, the whole electronic fuel injection business went to Japan, where they learned how to double the fuel economy of every car by replacing a $300 carburetor with a $25 fuel injector. And the history of our world is rapid technological change. But here's the conundrum we have right now. The major problem facing societies at the big level, and this is like not the president at the time we worry about this, but the long-term planners at Brookings and the other institutions are very worried. We live in a country today that 50% of those people who would take a job, if the job was offered or would like one, would work. Romney said it very accurately, although it was very painful. And it's not necessarily that they need to work, but they are not finding a job. Do you know, make a list. I always like to take the 24 little homes on my street in Brooklyn where I grew up, and I keep in touch with these people as my check group. So I hear an economic level, I go, let's run through the homes, my brother, we can figure out if it's true. 50% of the people you grew up with are not working right now. So it sounds crazy, but go do the numbers. They're in between jobs, but they're always in between, and someone else is always in between. Apply a hard test to it. And what we see is that 75% of those people ready, willing, and able to work 30 years ago had a job. Today, 50% do. By 2020, 25%. Saudi Arabia is down 10% employment. They're a microcosm where we're going. This is not bad, because when the farmers went from 30 million to 3 million, how much food do we have left? 100 times the amount, 10 times the amount. I mean, 100 times more productive, wasn't bad. Our GDP, output per capita, is going up every year. That's the most painful thing you'll probably hear today. Wow. And yet more and more people, tens of millions, are unemployed. Yeah. That means those who have a job, following the numbers, are earning more and more. And this is the conundrum that doesn't hit the news because it's just too painful to talk about. Because you don't get fired because the company that's sort of out of business, they got rid of you. And they got rid of you because your job and your skills didn't fit it like it did somewhere else. Whereas in the old days, it was all a big cycle in the economy. We all lost our jobs and we all commiserated. So back to unemployment, the #1 challenge of every society and government CEO, government leader I deal with is, what am I going to do? Social unrest. They'll storm the Bastille, literally and figuratively. They'll unelect me. They'll kill me. I need jobs. And what they can't realize is those jobs aren't there, because we are eliminating jobs by keeping the output. We're eliminating jobs with technology by keeping the output of the old job with technology faster than ever. But as a society, it's great that half of us don't work. Let's have fulfilling lives. They're great spouses. My wife goes in and out of the workforce based on the needs of our 4 children. And so there's nothing that terrible about it. We need to embrace it and work on it. But the most important thing is retraining. Because today we learn a skill in school and we still have the stupidity, and I don't like to use that bad word once in a while like that, to ask a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's a recipe for disaster. There's nothing toward school he can do when he grows up. They won't be there anymore. We're making vinyl records. We want to develop core skills in the love of life and enjoyable things. You go to college, as my mother said very well, when I went to the University of Pennsylvania, my mother said, my father would say, are my sons going to Wharton to learn how to make a living? And my mother would say, my son's going to the University of Pennsylvania to learn how to live. Education's for learning how to live, to be great people, to be best friends. That's what we learn in education. Secondarily, you improve your skills. Don't expect you're going to learn anything that's going to give you a job. But the biggest problem we have is, other than the people in this room, we have no system in the United States for retooling people. When you lose your job over 21, you are gone. There is no one out there hiring you, training you, teaching you new things. And so the reason I love network marketing so much is you take people who frankly, God bless you, I would argue as a business person, you shouldn't work with this person. You're going to make a lot more money working with this person who's much more motivated, much more efficient. And I come from large organizations where these painful decisions are made. But God bless you either don't know enough that this person's going to lose the last 3 things they did, or you just like them because they're your cousin and your uncle called up and said, you have to hire her. But whatever reason, you prove the pundits wrong. The person succeeds. And even if they don't succeed, they know they had a chance. They'll love you for the rest of your life. So what I love so much with network marketing is the retooling of those 27 million farmers who lost their jobs. We went from 30 million to 3. But farm output increased 1,000%. The retooling of the people that are constantly being thrown out of our economics world today is incredible for what to do. And what you do in training and development at meetings like this that I go to, I just am overwhelmed. When I worked at Citibank, I remember my first review and they told me, you did this wrong, you insulted this person, you did this, and I thought they were going to fire me. Instead, they said, you've got to commit 3 weekends to go work with these top psychologists. We're sending you a retreat to make you a junior vice president and a vice president of the bank. Wow. They would invest in me. Who invests in anybody today? You know, who train? They throw out people like they're worthless garbage just when they do something wrong. The only industry that with love and compassion invests in people and brings in people is yours. And whenever someone wants to pick on network marketing, you should really get aggressive, not just about the product you do, which is fantastic, but also, and its effect on your consumer, but what you do in giving people a chance to be something with their life. Whether they take the chance or not is up to them. But I can't tell you how much I respect what you do, and particularly love the network part of the distribution of your company. Next reasons. Other reasons I love network marketing so much is lifestyle. When it comes to lifestyle, I can remember that there was a happy year in my life that although it looked like I did a lot of things fast, I actually had a year off where I was between college and graduate school. And during that year, I worked with my father with my 2 brothers. And I was miserable. And one brother went off to law school, and I went off to work in business school, and yet to my father it was the happiest days of his life. He got to do what he does every day, deal with the people in business, and have his kids watch. And he was very proud of his ethics. And every night when we had dinner, he would have a story to see how this happened. It was pretty boring hanging with family, just by sitting there with them. It's exciting when there's something to talk about, something you did, particularly growing your business, and they were part of it. And I started to notice that when it comes to lifestyle, the highest thing you want after you make money is time with your family. And not just time, but something in common with your family, to learn, to spend time, to teach your children things. And what I love so much about the network marketing business, unlike any other business, when you're CEO of the company, you get to travel with the spouse, you get to bring the whole family. If you're running for president, the whole family is running with you, their family affairs. But when you're climbing up at a big company, they're not there at all. What I love about network marketing is the day you start, you were totally tied into the family. You were totally tied into working with your children, working with your spouse, working with your partner. And I can't put a price tag on that reward, because if you were very, very rich, that's what you want most. And that's where the people I've seen over the last few decades succeed so well in network marketing, succeed so well in life because of the relationships they develop with their family. The other 2 reasons I like network marketing so much is it solves the major problem in our society. And let me focus a little bit on economics and then what we call the backlog in marketing or business today. In economics, 50 years ago, distribution was 50% of the cost of a product. So products and services were invented. You went into a department store, the department store sold them to you, and marked everything up 2 to 1. It was 50%. Why did they mark it up 50? They didn't know not to. They knew if they go broke if they mark it less, and no one buy it if they mark it up more. So they just bought any goods, put it in the department store, and doubled the price. That meant that distribution was 50% of the cost. And over the next 5 decades, we took manufacturing costs down to nothing. We shifted from leather and metal and cameras to plastics. We shifted to assembly lines. We reduced manufacturing costs so much that by turn of the century, 2000, if you bought a product in a retail store, 80–85% was distribution cost. 15–20% was what the manufacturer actually got. And the reason was not that distribution costs had risen, but manufacturing had gone down. So the greatest fortunes made in our world, and if you look at the Forbes 400 today, 5 of them are Waltons. Sam Walton. Dumb as a rock business model, distribute things that people want. And by distributing things, he became the richest person in the world. And if you look at most of the people who made money over the last 4 decades, They're families or organizations that distributed things versus making things, because distribution is 80–85%. Now, before you listen to that and run out and say, I'm going to go into the distribution business, focus closer. What we see today is that UPS, combined using someone like Amazon or Federal Express, or the ways of distributing products, shopping centers, have taken the opportunity to physically distribute products and services and taken it away from you. It doesn't exist anymore. What does exist is something I call intellectual distribution. The richest people making the fortunes the fastest today are people who distribute information about products and services that will improve your life. They don't distribute the product. It's exactly what you do. You think you distribute a product, but I don't think you physically buy it and bring it over to my house and distribute it. You let UPS or someone else do all the dirty work and make the few pennies. But the real distribution you do is you distribute the intelligence. And when it comes to distributing something that's going to change your life, a paradigm shift, it's not going to be distributed via a passive medium. When you're sitting there watching TV, you're already like this, and you're halfway watching. And when something comes on the TV that you don't agree with, you change the channel. Whereas if they go, you can lose weight, no, I can't lose weight, click. But when you get something engaged in a passive medium, active medium, there's no substitute for a human being sitting right in front of somebody, whether it be pheromones or you know what, that says, listen to me, I'm focused on you, I talk a little bit, I interacted with you, and then you can explain the product. So network marketing is one of the last left active mediums versus passive medium. And the active medium means you can change someone's paradigm. There is no other marketing tool that can really do it. Or put another way, I know you have a distribution model that I don't want to insult called direct. You're getting there. That's hitting the people you can hit through the television. But the most of the people are not going to take action, and that's where you need a person going to talk to them. And of course, network marketing, you guys tell the people the truth. You're not going to get rich working for me, and most important, you won't get rich without a residual income. You've got to be able to make a sale, move on, teach someone about a better product and service. Sorry, I used the word sale. Teach someone about a product or service that will improve their life. They buy it, you move to the next customer, they're still buying it, you're still making money. Without residual income, there is no chance of accumulating $1 million. Go find a millionaire, you'll find they do something that makes them money on what they did yesterday. No matter how much they're paid by the hours, a lawyer, a doctor, or any other kind of job, they're not going to accumulate wealth without residual income. You guys, network marketing is your only one telling them the truth when you go through a business model. So I am only warming up here and have about 6 hours more notes. And I really had a wonderful time. I got to tell you, last night it's blinking, telling me I'm way over. I am going to be around here for several hours now. I hope I'm looking around, I can shake every hand and meet every one of you. But more important, I want to do whatever I can to make you succeed. It's frankly a laydown because you're sitting now at really an amazing perfect storm. You're sitting in a perfect storm with a product that's so in demand. And more important, your product is exercise, it's coaching and emotional support, and of course it's the great product itself that's going to change the diet intake. And you know, that is unique among companies like you. I have a real problem with you in that you're really way too small, frankly, to make the kind of impact we need in our country. And you're going to do something about that. This is my first time speaking for you, and I'll tell you, I've watched you for a long time, and I've said, you know, they hit $1 billion, they enter that area of public policy, they can affect millions of lives, they can distribution everywhere in the country, and you're really right there. I'm really proud of you. And I respect so much. In this room, I wanted to talk about, you know, one day, I was in a room at a Beachbody convention, there weren't even 2,000 people. It wasn't even $1 billion company then. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart, you're getting there so fast right now. And from my heart, I know you're here to fill your own dreams, I shouldn't say that, also change your life with the kind of good work you can do among the people who become your customers. But you're also here to really focus on the #1 issue of the United States. How do we ever grow to be this unbelievable world leader, last man standing, and internally destroying ourselves? So when it comes to, you have a perfect storm of opportunity. You have the world of entrepreneurship where everyone who's finally ready my economic work is getting it. Geez, I really need to be an entrepreneur, not I may want to be an entrepreneur. You're at a point with network marketing which fills all the pieces to tell the truth about people, who is very important to many of them to accumulate wealth. It works because their residual income is something to be incredibly, incredibly proud of. You're in an industry that's the #1 needed industry in our world today, wellness revolution, and you're just now crossing the line that you've got distribution product in every spot in the United States, and hopefully soon worldwide. So I so applaud you for this perfect storm of entrepreneurship, network marketing, wellness revolution. I wish you, I don't have to wish you, you're totally there with the greatest of success. It's happening right now. I feel very, very honored to be able to contribute wherever I can. God bless you, everybody.